What's going on, football fans? It's your host, Bad Takes, with Bad Takes in Football, back with another video for you. Gonna dive into the Pittsburgh Steelers versus Houston Texans game and what happened with Mike Tomlin. But before I do that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're building an awesome community here where we talk everything NFL football. So make sure to like and comment on this video. What do you think about last night's game? What do you think about the decision for Mike Tomlin to step down? Let's hop into today's video. Last night, the Houston Texans went into Pittsburgh to face off against the Steelers, and this was a recipe for disaster for the Steelers from the beginning. The Houston Texans have one of the best defenses in the NFL and what I would consider to be a mediocre to a little bit above mediocre offense. We saw exactly what I expected last night. Aaron Rodgers, in probably the last game of his career, struggled mightily against this Houston Texans defense. He threw 33 times, completing 17 of those passes for 146 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. Now, I would consider that interception in garbage time. It was a point in the game at the end of the game where the Steelers really had nothing to lose. They were down by multiple possessions, and so Rodgers was just trying to get something going, because the fact of the matter is, that offense couldn't get anything going the entire game. They had they had 2 field goals, both in the first half, and then didn't score another point the rest of the game. This was a recipe for the disaster from the beginning for the Steelers in so many different ways. I talked about it on a previous video. The Ravens, the Steelers, both were very bad teams. Both were not really a playoff team, but because you had to take one team from the division, it ended up being the Steelers because they made less mistakes than the Ravens did this year. My biggest concern, and it's actually already been solved, was the fact that I thought the Steelers were going to push everything under the rug because of the fact that they actually made the playoffs. And so you can consider them a playoff team, even though, in my opinion, they were the worst playoff team, and I'm including the Panthers in that situation. The entire season, that offense was stagnant. There was a point in time where even this highly paid, highly touted defense was like Swiss cheese. They really got going a little bit at the end. They went on a little bit of a run, got some momentum, and then lost all of it in this playoff game. Aaron Rodgers was sacked 4 times in what was probably the last game of his career. Again, he had 1 interception. He had 2 fumbles, and one of those he actually lost. On the other side of the ball, CJ Stroud actually was outplayed by Aaron Rodgers, even after everything I just said. CJ Stroud fumbled the ball 5 times, losing it twice in that situation. He also threw an interception where he looked completely lost, completely scared. He was scrambling around. He looked like a very bad quarterback, and that says a lot about how bad this Steelers team is, to have a quarterback that fumbled the ball 5 times and threw an interception as well, and still won this game 30-6. Now, one of those touchdowns was a pick 6. Another one of these touchdowns was a fumble recovery for a touchdown, where an Aaron Rodgers was strip sacked for a touchdown, and that's really what sealed this game. So the Texans defense really was their best offense. We were going into the fourth quarter, and it was a 6-7 game. Not a single team scored a point in the third quarter when it was 7-6 at half, and then the Texans just turned it on and scored 23 points at the end of this game. Now, getting back to the impact of this game and what's now going on with the Steelers, Mike Tomlin has stepped down as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has been the head coach for this team for 19 years, which means there are people that are in college that the day they were born to now, Mike Tomlin has been the only head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers that entire time. That is an insane statistic. That is an insane accomplishment. Mike Tomlin, hats off to you. Well-deserved. Never had a losing season. But he also, at the same time, hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. I was looking at that roster, and these are some names that I found on the roster when they won their last playoff game. Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, James Harrison. These are Steelers legends now at this point in time, and these were the players that were on the Steelers team that won their last playoff game. TJ Watt, the guy they just paid $40 million a year to, he is 0-6 in the playoffs. And all of those 6 losses have been with Mike Tomlin as the head coach. There was a time for change. I think a lot of people saw that there was change needed. It's pretty much been going around the NFL like wildfire at this point. John Harbaugh being the example before this, where someone just, even though it's a very successful, well-run organization, it was time for change. And the Steelers, they might not even been ready to give him up. Or maybe this is even a plan from the beginning, because one of the most interesting factors of the situation with Mike Tomlin stepping down is the fact that the Steelers still own his contractual rights, which means they actually have the ability to trade Mike Tomlin if he wants to go to a different team. So they can actually get something out of this situation, even though he stepped down. I'm really curious as to who his best options are. I was joking around about it earlier, and I thought to myself, what if John Harbaugh went to the Steelers and Mike Tomlin ended up in Baltimore? These are two organizations that are very well run. They care so much about their cultures. They love having stable head coaches they can count on. And so in a lot of ways it makes a lot of sense, even though these are division rivals and they've been facing these opponents for the last 18 and 19 years between these coaches. For me, I think that Mike Tomlin is probably going to take a year away, maybe two, let that contract run out, and probably end up in whatever coaching situation he wants. He's going to have the pick of the litter. I talked about John Harbaugh being the number one option as a head coach for a lot of teams. Mike Tomlin's probably right there. He's probably actually ahead of John Harbaugh when it comes to coaching status and prowess and how you would rank these head coaches, purely because of the fact that he's never had a losing season. He's won 2 Super Bowls, and everyone loves Mike Tomlin when they talk about him as a head coach. I'm talking players, coaches alike. I think there's a huge dramatic change going on in football right now. I think there is a new age of football that's actually about to hit us. We're seeing younger coaches with different sorts of styles, playing unique sorts of offenses as well as defenses. Even Tom Brady talked about the fact that there's defenses out there that he's never even faced before as an NFL quarterback. And he's been retired for 2 or 3 years at this point. I'm really curious to see what the route is that the Steelers go. Again, there's so many changes that are happening, especially in the AFC North. Something that I have to point out, and I'm sorry that the Cincinnati Bengals have to take a stray here, but you have to feel so dumb about the fact that you are keeping your head coach Zach Taylor when you've had multiple losing seasons in a row, haven't made the playoffs, and the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the two teams that you chase and try to become year after year, let go of their coaches because they weren't okay with the status quo, and you're keeping your garbage coach around. I mean, that just tells you how much of a trash organization the Cincinnati Bengals are. They have to feel so dumb after watching what's going on in the AFC North. They're going to find themselves behind the 8 ball again because they are okay with the status quo, and Mike Tomlin, at least from the Steelers' perspective, is not okay with that. And then the same thing with the Baltimore Ravens. And even the Cleveland Browns are getting a new head coach. So Zach Taylor is going to be the only coach returning to the AFC North from this year. What do you think about what happened last night with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do you think we saw the end of Aaron Rodgers? Where do you think Mike Tomlin's going to end up? That's it for me today. Thank you again for watching. This is Bad Takes with Bad Takes in Football, signing out.